What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to Celio's Network. Today I'm going to take a look at the meta share from the most recent Hegster TCG tournament. It had over 150 players, and this was on September 2nd. I'm also looking at the top 32 decks. If you're interested in the deck lists, though, go check out Hegster TCG's YouTube channel, because he usually does like a deck profile, deck list kind of video for the top 8 or top 16 deck lists from these events, especially if they feature like interesting decks or deck lists that have a little something different going on. Before we take a look at this meta and just kind of talk about it, shout out to PotownStore.com, the best place for you to get PTCGO codes, and be sure to use code Celio for 5% off. So this is the kind of the meta share of the 155 players that competed in this online tournament. So just a brief information on the tournament. 155 players, 8 Swiss rounds, top cut of 16. So the top 4 most played decks: Eternatus, ADP Zacian, Mew 3 Welder, Blacephalon. Actually, we'll say top 5, and Look Metal. I don't think that's much of a surprise. The baby Blacephalon has kind of been on the back burner, no pun intended, because people thought it was dead because Fiery Flint rotated, which, you know, Fiery Flint's a good card for the deck, but it doesn't completely kill the deck. So I was surprised that it took this long for Blacephalon to start seeing a little bit more play and success, but here we are, because Baby Blounds is still a fine deck. Eternatus is the most played, and ADP Zacian the second most. So between these two decks, they're taking up a pretty good chunk of the meta. It's nice to see ADP Zacian not being the most popular, because the decks that Alter Creation gatekeeps are less and less affected the more this goes down. Eternatus is being kind of revered as one of the best decks of the format. Some people are calling it like the S tier deck, or the best deck in the format. I do think it's really strong, and I also think the lists are becoming better and better, which is something really important to keep in mind. I like the Dangerous Drill. People are figuring out to play Sable IV and Spirit Tomb. Some lists play Pokegear as like a more burnable card, so you can draw more with Crobat V. So the lists are becoming more refined with Eternatus. Of course, like I said, if you want to see the lists from the tournament, head on over to Hegster's channel, because he has all of that. Mew 3 Welder still pretty popular, 17 decks out of 155 players. It's definitely important to note that these decks are taking up, the top decks are taking up less and less of the meta, I think, and that's really, really good. I don't like to see like 2 or 3 decks taking up 50% of the meta. Now here we do have 4 decks taking up 50% of the meta, but I hope we see other decks start to come in and take up a little bit of bigger pieces of the meta share to help keep the meta diverse, because we do have a fairly diverse meta game. My issue with it is that the gameplay isn't that great. And that's because of the power creep, and I'll probably have another video where I talk about power creep. But yeah, so Look Metal, honestly surprised it's not higher since it got first and second at the Players' Cup. Blacephalon saw a nice spike in play here. I didn't expect to see this much. I would have probably expected Blacephalon to be down here where Pikarom or Senti are, and then Look Metal to be up here, maybe even past Mew 3 Welder. Another thing to note is Pikarom. So there were 6 Pikaroms played, and a few of them did make the top 16 cut, which we'll take a look at in just a second. Pikarom is another deck like Baby Blounds. People just write it off as dead, and this is actually the first time that I didn't think Pikarom was dead, just because I've been testing it out myself, and it still definitely is an okay deck. I don't think it's tier 1 or close to being tier 1. It has a pretty hard time versus Eternatus and Mew 3 Welder, and can definitely struggle versus Centiskorch and Look Metal, which used to be pretty favorable for Pikarom, is probably closer now, but it's still a fine deck. Big basic tag teams are still very strong, so Pikarom is not like a dumpster fire deck by any means, and I wouldn't be surprised if this gets up to like having a dozen people playing it for the next tournament. So let's move on to the top 32 deck. So out of 155 players, this was the top 32, and the top 16, which is the entire left column, cut to play extra rounds in single elimination. So we'll look at the top 32, 17th through 32nd first. A Guardian made it in at 5-3, so 5-3 isn't like an amazing record, but Gardevoir Sylveon tag team getting a positive record, I think, is notable enough. There's a Mad Party in here, Salament's deck, which is really nice to see, Oscar M with the Aerodactyl, and the new Golisopod from Darkness Ablaze. In the winning, I believe it was John Ang versus Oscar M, and Oscar made a couple misplays that ended up with the Baby Blounds winning. But yeah, you'll see these Baby Blound decks scattered throughout here. Good bit of Eternatus. And then in the top 16, there were 3 Pikarom, the highest placing one being Isaiah Bradner. And then Marco and Levi also playing Pikarom. I believe 2 of the Pikaroms actually had a play in top 16, but I'm not 100% positive on that. The big story here, I guess, other than Pikarom being in the top 8, would be that Ed Valencia won with Decigoons. So I actually did a deck profile on Ed's Decigoons deck not too long ago. I think it's only been a few days since I made that deck profile video. And that was because he placed in the top 4 with it. He made a couple changes and ended up winning the whole tournament with it. He won the biggest League Cup style event, which is what we're kind of regarding this top deck number 6 as, with 155 players. He won it with Decigoons. So Decidueye Obstagoon, it's really nice to see stage 2 attackers doing well. Of course, they're doing well because they're wall Pokemon. If they didn't have these walling effects that stopped other Pokemon from attacking them, then they wouldn't even be close to viable. But, you know, I'll take what we can get as far as stage 2 attackers being viable. It's something. It's kind of the only way the designers have been able to thrust stage 2s into viability, is giving them the things like Obstagoon's Obstruct and Decidueye's ability that stops Vs and GXs from attacking it. Eternatus got 2nd, top 4, top 16, multiple top 32s. ADP Zacian got 2 top 8s. So ADP Zacian's still seeing a lot of scattered success throughout here. The highest Centiskorch was actually top 8 this time, so I think that might be the highest placing Centiskorch in all of Hegster's post-rotation tournaments. So it's nice to see Centiskorch doing well in such a large tournament with 8 rounds of Swiss and a top 16. So it had to get through a lot to get to this placing, which makes these results all the more viable. Mewtwo Welder still getting top 4. Mewtwo Welder is not backing off. Still a really good deck, but it's very volatile. So I think this is the only Mewtwo. Yeah, this was the only Mewtwo in all of top 32. So it is a good deck, but not everybody actually gets there with it. Because it is a Welder deck, it's kind of inconsistent. Like I said, Baby Blounds did end up getting into top 16, but not breaking through to top 8. The Pikaroms, some Luke Metals. And I don't think there's much else exciting here to talk about. Let's just bring up the Swiss Metashare, the 155 person Metashare. So Decigoons ended up winning the event, and there were only 4 of them played, which is really nice. So it's showing that it wasn't really a deck where like so many people had to play it to force it into success. Kind of like I think Mew Welder is. There were 17 people that played Mew Welder, and only 1 made the top 32. Let's just double check that real quick. So, yeah. Yes, so 17 people played Mew Welder, only 1 made top 32. That's really bad success rate. Whereas Eternatus and ADP Zacian and Luke Metal, I think Blounds did a little better. Yeah, Blounds had scattered success throughout the top 32. Pikarom, actually 3 out of 6 of the people that played it made it into cut. So, really poor success rate for Mew3 Welder. Fairly decent stuff for Eternatus, ADPZ, Blacephalon, Look Metal. Really good for Pikarom. Centiskorch, I think 2 of them made top. Let me check. Yeah, 1 was at 32nd, and... oh no, actually, and 2 made cut. So yeah, 5th, top 16, and top 32. So Scorch did a little kind of decent as well. Mew3 Welder just did really stinky in this one. But that's probably because more people are countering it, and it's a very variance-heavy deck. Kind of depending on Welder, at least in the early turns. And also relying on your abilities, relying on combinations of cards. So Stamp, Power Plant, the Mimic You from Cosmic Eclipse. Many things can kind of hinder it from performing the way it should. So that's the metagame from the Hegster Season 2 Top Deck 6 tournament with over 150 players. These tournaments have been kind of the best part of weekly Pokemon at this point, since we don't have cups and challenges and regionals. The Hegster TCG tournaments have been the place to be. So hope you liked this video and got something out of my short analysis on the meta from this, and also thanks to everyone for putting together these charts. I think Cash did the top 32 one, and I honestly don't know who did this one, but thank you for everyone that's been helping Ethan, and also Ethan for running these tournaments. If you need any information about these tournaments, please let me know. And like I said earlier, check out Hegster TCG's YouTube for the deck lists of the top 16 decks from this tournament. I'll just bring that up again in case you want the lists for any of these. He should have them over there in his most recent YouTube video. As always, shout out to PotownStore.com, the best place for you to get PTCGO codes, and be sure to use code Celio for 5% off. Subscribe to the channel if you have not already and you would like to see more content like this in the future, and leave a like on the video if you did enjoy it. The likes really help me reach future potential viewers. So hope you liked the video. Have a good day. See you next time here on Celio's Network.